Buenos tardes, ¿qué pasó? Good evening, and how is everybody? Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the difference of being both an expat and just living in general in Mexico as opposed to living down here in Panama, okay? And for those of you that have been following along, you know that I've been very excited about getting a backdrop painting for y'all, all right? And yeah, I finally got her, all right? This was painted by an incredible artist down in Guatemala. His information is listed down below in the description. And once I received it in the mail, it was in the cylinder, I found an incredible frame shop, okay, about an hour and a half from the house here. So this thing has only got hung up yesterday, and so I'm so impressed with it. And yes, I am going to go ahead and risk moving everything out of motion to let you see this incredible sugar face painting. It depicts the Day of the Dead down from Mexico. So yeah, let me do that real quick for you. Ain't that just beautiful? Okay, I'm like, there is no way that I can do this video without y'all seeing my sugar face painting, okay? And here we go. We'll see how, hopefully we get kind of close for you guys. All right, so, all right, and guess what? I'm moving up in the world, baby. It's been a month. I got me a mic up here, so hopefully things will sound good as well. All right, and so yeah, all I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about different key points as far as the differences, you know, from living in Panama and Mexico. And down the road soon, we may have a question and answer, letting you guys, you know, go ahead and, you know, just ask, you know, some questions and so forth. So, in general, I like to start things off. If this is your first time ever, you know, looking at these videos, I retired from the Marines, retired from the Forest Service last August, and I went and moved and lived as a resident in Mexico for 4 months, okay? And then I went and transitioned back to the US, and then I came down here to Panama to live. So I've been through both of the processes. And for those of you that are looking at becoming expats in both Mexico and down here in Panama, I'm going to do a good job of clarifying some things for you so that it'll make, you know, things more understandable, especially for you guys, you know, in addition to people that are just enjoying this video, okay? All right. Key point number one, and this is one that affects a lot of people, and I'm actually have reached out to a YouTuber in Mexico to try to help some people that may not qualify for the Mexico resident visa. Resident visa, temporary visa, okay. If you have a US passport, if you have a Canadian passport, you can travel with no problems up to 180 days in both Mexico and Canada, okay. If you want to go live in Mexico or Panama, then you need to go ahead and get permission through the resident visa process, you know, so forth, okay. My first question that is very interesting, the difference between both Panama and Mexico, is what is the retirement resident visa process like? Okay, I chose that one because that's the one that I applied for and got in both Mexico and Panama. And for Mexico purposes, it's just called a temporary resident visa, okay, that falls within the parameters of receiving monies every month for the rest of your life, you know, whether it's Social Security, whether it's, you know, a company-based program, you know, military, state, federal, okay, that word retirement really is not, you know, it just kind of categorizes it. Whereas in Panama, it has a name on it, and it's called a jubilado retirement visa. Mexico. Let's start with you first. Okay. I just Googled it just for conversation. All right, and let me go ahead and fix something real quick. Okay, I'm back. There was something with the camera that bugged me. Okay, I had to go fix it. Okay, let's start with Mexico first. Mexico in general, just a general Google search. You need to show for a temporary resident visa that falls within the retirement category, $73,215 in a retirement savings, in a Roth IRA, mutual fund. Mine, I got qualified with a combination of that plus my thrift savings account. It's a federal savings program that I received from the U.S. Forest Service and that I paid into and so forth. Okay, so you've got a lump sum value. To qualify, you've got to show financial solvency. Okay. That's what they call it. You've got to be able to show you make so much money to be able to be qualified to live in their country. Okay, you've got that way for Mexico. The other way is you've got to make so much money a month, okay, that's going to be sent to you, for the rest of your life. This value on Google right now is $4,393. Okay. That's your Social Security, that's your, military retirement, that's your state pension, that's your entity, company, whatever that's paying you, the rest of your life, a retirement value, okay? That's that value. Okay. I refer to Google, okay, because it's Mexican, to get the Mexican resident visa is the most convoluted thing that I've probably endured in my life, all right? But it was worthwhile. Why? Because I love Mexico, all right? First step in getting this is to go to a Mexican consulate. They are sprinkled all over the country that you're applying for, whether it's Canada or United States. I was lucky enough to get an appointment with the Kansas City, Missouri office. Okay. Now you would think that these values that I just threw up there from Google, because it's still relevant. Why? Because these values change per Mexican consulate office. So the consulate office in Atlanta, their values and requirements are different than Kansas City, Missouri, and also McAllen, Texas, Washington, D.C., this, that, and on and on and on. Well, why is that, Rick? Oh, it's very simple. It doesn't make any sense. You would think, and I'm just expressing this because I know there's a lot of people out there there are some people out there that are watching this like, I feel your pain, Rick. And I'm going to get to you in a little bit, especially if you don't, for some reason, qualify for the Mexican resident visa. So you would think it's a federal program that every federal entity of Mexico that you walked into, every Mexican consulate, had the same rules as far as qualifying. It doesn't. So we'll skip forward. That's enough said. So I was lucky. It felt like I won the lottery. Bam. Everything, the interview, they interviewed me. In addition to my paperwork, I sat down in the consulate in Kansas City, Missouri. They did a one-on-one, closed door, just me at a table with the interviewer. And, I gave them, my past histories. I had a wife from central Mexico that she was with me in Southern California. I brought her kiddos across, through that immigration process, which, I can't... I don't know if I didn't know exactly the steps, but it was very convoluted, and this was like 2001, sometime like that. And so that was a whole different ball of wax. And so, it's very difficult. Okay, so I got the approval. Okay, when that step was done, I knew it was a done deal. I knew I could live in Mexico the rest of my life. I knew that much about the process. So I jumped on a plane. After I retired, I had it all, everything was planned out, methodically planned. I got the approval. My house was on the market. Everything went wonderful with the sale of the house that I had built brand new, and I only lived in it for less than a year. And so everything just went just like smooth. And I had my step off point, my 10-year retirement with U.S. Forest Service, all the math work, everything lined up. And so once I got my visa in May, I retired from the U.S. Forest Service, and then 2 days later, I was on an aircraft going to Mexico. I had YouTubers in the small beach town that I wanted to live at, and Cindy and Fred from Life in Huatulco, they made it a soft landing. I had my apartment lined up. No, I ain't living no resort. I went to Mexico to live with Mexicans. I went there to continue, my level of Spanish and everything. And so they made it so simple for that initial, landing down there. Okay, so, all right. So with that being said, all right, let's talk about Panama. All right, this is a happy place when we talk about Lamboglia Law visa in Panama. All you need to show in Panama is yourself. You need to show $1,000 a month reoccurring payment for the rest of your life. Okay, you can break that down. They call it, Social Security, private company, a lifetime pension from whatever entity, state or federal, something that shows you get paid $1,000 a month for the rest of your life. Okay, and all I'm doing, I'm just using my scenario because that's the one that I'm familiar and understand. All right, so we're not, there are other ways to be able to come down here and live and work, online working, there's other ways, but, there's different processes. And guess what? You're okay. Why? Because I have one of the best immigration lawyers in Panama. Her link is down below. And sooner or later, I chit-chatted with her, text back and forth yesterday. Sooner or later, I'm going to be able to do a very in-depth interview with her. Lamboglia Law, and her name is Mariana. Okay, and so go to the links down below and find that link, and you go there and you talk to her one-on-one if you have questions about anything. Okay, so right off the bat, okay, it's simpler to live in Panama long term. All right. Once I arrived in Panama, about a week and a half later, I went up. First time I actually met Mariana in person, signed all the papers. Next morning, one of her workers met me at the immigration office, went in, did all my paperwork, and this very, very busy building with a lot of people. And I walked away that day. I had my temporary visa. Okay, the temporary visa, we processed other paperwork. 4 months later, I went down there and I got my permanent Lamboglia Law visa. I can live, and that's my plan, live till the last day of my life in Panama, and there's no other immigrational steps that I need to take. Okay, backing up just for a second, because I had forgotten. When I arrived in Mexico, there was another step, which I hired a lawyer that the YouTube family that had taken me on to kind of help me out. He provided paperwork, and for my appointment at this other office in Mexico. My situation was a 1-year resident visa granted. So after that 1 year, then the next year, I had to go to that same office near where I lived, and I had to get it renewed, all the way to 4 years, and then it was a done deal. I would be in the same status that I was down here in Panama in 5 months. Okay, So that's a little bit of difference, for you guys that are, have tuned in and are kind of looking, especially if you're trying to get to Mexico and the dots are not lining up for you. Okay, you go down below, Lamboglia Law, and come on to Panama. All right. Okay, let's talk about automobile usage. Okay, I got down to La Crucecita. Where is La Crucecita, Rick? It's on the western side coast. It was a coast beach town on Mexico. You continue to go south past Baja. You go to the mainland of Mexico. You continue to go to south where it kind of hooks around to the right like a boot heel. I was up under there, okay? And automobile usage, I could have drove in Mexico on a temporary resident visa if I would have brought my vehicle with me from the United States down there. And there would have been other options. I wouldn't have had to drive it all the way because I wouldn't have. Why? Because it's too dangerous, okay? But there are other options that I could have gotten someone, paid for someone to bring the vehicle, drive the vehicle down. I got to ship the vehicle down, okay? With that being said, I sold everything and I was kind of like on foot down there. And so I couldn't, on a temporary resident visa, all right, you even cannot, you can't buy a scooter, okay? So, but after your 4 years, or if you get deemed permanent visa, status before then you're allowed to buy something in the country. Could I rent? Yeah, I could have rented, okay? All right, so enough said on that. Okay, Panama. Panama is so user-friendly. It's so wonderful. Once I landed, and once I got my temporary visa, all right, just by chance, my neighbor got here like 3 days before me. So, we got our temporary visas around the same time. And so I actually, my level of Spanish, I was very confident that we could go into a Toyota dealer, about an hour, 45 minutes from here, Chitre, and I could work through the details. And so, and we did. So we went up there, I took her up there, we all went up there. And as soon as they seen us, they sent us to an incredible person, Marlene. Okay, Marlene spoke really good English and wonderful, wonderful personality and was just so nice, wonderful. And she assisted my neighbor with the purchase of her vehicle. Okay, so after about, probably for my situation, I flew in and then had my appointment. I could have flown in and had my appointment like the next day. I could have bought a vehicle in the first week if I'd have had my appointment to get my temporary jubilado visa in Panama as soon as I landed, okay? So it's a lot easier, okay? While we're talking about automobiles, let's talk about driving, all right? In Mexico, I have drove in Mexico before when I lived in Southern California on the Marine base. And that was the first time that I drove in a roundabout. And that was a very interesting and fun experience. But it's the driving is, I would say, from Mexico and Panama, I would say that there's a lot of similarities from, my experience, in the small town. It's fun. They, especially down here in Panama, they'll use horns. They'll use horns as a courtesy. Like if somebody, whatever scenario, they'll use their horns like beep, beep, just to let you know, hey, I'm coming up on you, or whatever scenario. In many scenarios, okay. I don't call it driving down here in Panama. I call it the dance. And when I got here, and I started driving rental cars and stuff, and I'd rode in shuttle buses, and God bless, you want to have the most fun in Panama in your life, you jump in a taxi cab and ride in Panama City, you're like, yeah, I know he don't own this vehicle, So I called it a dance, there was nothing to get mad about, as far as somebody cutting you off, where you might be annoyed back in the United States, because that's the dance. And that's the way that I adapted to driving in Panama. a lot of our rules that we adhere to in the United States, I really don't know if they're known about. If you come up to a four-way stop in the United States, you and the other car get there at the exact same time, okay? Guess who has the right of way? As far as I can remember, the person on the right has the right of way. Okay, here you just kind of figure it out as you go. And a lot of times, you know, if I'm pulling up and I see, you know, a lady and her family, I'm gonna be very polite, you know, and so forth. But, you know, I had to learn that my courtesy of driving that I brought down from the United States, it had to be modified a little bit. You know, I had to be a little bit more aggressive. I had to, you know, just understand that was the way it was, and no, I'm not cutting you off, you know, you've not made it to the intersection or whatever scenario. A little bit more aggressive driving. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. And after you drive enough, you'll kind of understand the do's and the don'ts and so forth. All right. Okay. Number 4, let's talk about mail, receiving and sending mail. Okay. Mexico did pretty good as far as me receiving mail from Amazon. Whenever I ordered something from Amazon in Mexico, the actual warehouse was in Mexico. All right. And I was able, you know, the mail, I had a really solid address in Mexico for my apartment. And, you know, and my package, boom, get right there. You know, and Amazon did pretty good at tracking, you know, it's like, hey, it should be arriving today, you know, and it arrived today. And so sending mail, I had to send like a signed bill of sale for a trailer that I was assisting my brother, and, you know, gave to my brother, and he was trying to resell. And so I had to go to FedEx. Where I wasn't in Mexico, FedEx from there, the longest time they would go, you know, nothing super fast, was $75. And so I'm like, huh. And so down here in Panama, it's pretty interesting. We have this thing called OfferNet. Anybody, any company in the United States that I need to have sent to me down here in Panama, I have this account with OfferNet. It's a free account. With this account, I get an address and a special 4-digit code associated with me. And within the address, there are 4 letters that identify this OfferNet office that is local here in Pedasí, Panama. So I'll put that address. The first thing it arrives to is Doral, Florida. It's in Dade County, Miami. So it'll get there, it'll bounce all the way down, all right, to Panama. Then those 4-letter brevity codes, it'll make its way all the way down here to Pedasí. And then I'll get an email that, okay, it's time to go to the OfferNet office and pick up whatever package, you know, that I have. As far as mailing out stuff, I mailed a form out, and I use FedEx, and it was a little pricey. I can't remember the exact price. As far as mailing like a souvenir or anything out, I'm not sure if OfferNet works the same way. I have seen a DHL sign for an office down here, not a formal office. I've seen a DHL sign on someone's house, so I guess they're a certified shipper, you know, so I might check into that later on. So yeah, mail is good. You just have to learn how it all works. Cool. Moving right along. Okay, this is one that I'm like, I could probably do the whole video on culture, differences from US, you know, down in Latin America. But for right now, we'll kind of keep it simple and talk about the cultural difference between Mexico and Panama, okay? Again, and here is where, you know, I like to express and really paint a good picture of myself. You know, my friends and stuff down here, I said, estoy Panameño. I said, no, I'm Panamanian. You know, I got light skin. I said, but my heart is brown. What does that mean, Rick? Okay, growing up, I grew up in the Panhandle, Florida, small town, Milton, Florida, all right? There it was multicultural You know, I had black families that lived to my left, to behind me, all right? And also I had a black church right behind me that I remember, you know, as a child, me and my brothers out in the backyard on Sunday playing basketball, you know, about 12:30, you know, just so much rich culture, this church, they were still praising the Lord, you know, all day long. My bus that I rode, you know, going to school in all grades, you know, it was all of us. We all multicultural, you know, black, white, you know. So that was such a wonderful benefit for me of having, you know, friends and everything that was you know, not like exactly myself. And I'll be honest with you, I'm gonna throw this out there to you. That experience that young in life and being raised up there, you know, probably one of the, and I don't mean this in a negative way or nothing, but one of the biggest compliments maybe I've gotten in my life was on ship, you know, with other fellow staff NCOs, you know, in the berthing and stuff, and we all got talking this, that, and the other, and you know, you joke about everything. And so there was this one Mexican first sergeant that I'd went to mass with him a couple times, and just I had so much respect for him. He just really solid. He goes, and he got around and said, "Well, what about adultery? Adultery ain't white." He goes, "Yeah, and no. I don't know what adultery is. Adultery ain't white," you know, and that just goes back to that cultural interactiveness, you know. And so, with that being said, you know, I really love to connect to the Latino culture, you know, and down in Mexico, what I experienced in the small beach town down there, not to say anything about anyone, you know what, you know, because when it's all said and done, there's gonna be one line in heaven, all right? And so, but there's different cultures from different parts of the US and Canada, all right, that might be a little bit more standoffish. So myself going down to La Cruz, they didn't know I was from Milton, right? And so it was kind of like they didn't know if I was a friend or if I was a foe in Mexico. So like at the store or something, I was lucky to have a little bit of Spanish, you know, on the belt. So I just start talking Spanish and pretend, you know, I'm down there in Milton, you know, and you could see the defenses in their eyes would change. They knew that I wasn't a threat or whatever. And so like, okay, this guy's cool. Okay. Panama is so incredible in that it's so approachable, you know. It's just, I don't care where you go. I don't care. You don't even have to be, you know, from the southeast, you know, from where I was. You can go anywhere and boom, they're nice. They're approachable. There's not so much that friend or foe like defense. It's very, you can walk up to anywhere. And you know me, I'm out and go to this, you know, I'm out in the streets in local towns, you know, doing shopping. I'll see something funny or whatever. It's just so easy to just start interacting with people, you know, and they're so inviting. They're so inviting, amable. That's what they say, you know, amable, you know, friendly. They're so easy to get along with, very friendly. And so that is a little bit about the culture. One other thing, okay, that I'll add, you know, I can be, is the difference. We'll talk about personality, cultural difference. I could be in a bar in Mexico, anywhere, and you know, late night or whatever, you know, and you know, they can start playing some Kid Rock or something especially something I know the words to, and I can get on it as loud as I want to because nobody else probably hears me because they've got it up to 10. You know what I'm saying? Down here, you know. Down here, I went out to karaoke one night in Panama City, and that was a good environment. But you know, as far as just me dropping my guard, being me, I want to say in a lot of circumstances, it's easier for me to be me in Mexico, and I have to be observant, make sure, you know, that I don't, you know, maybe, I don't know, offend anyone or something maybe down here in Panama. Because, why? Because they're amable. They're very, very nice people, okay? There was something else just came in the back of my mind. Oh yeah. So, especially, I walk out the apartment, house, whatever, and I'm like, hey, what's up? Yeah. Just that interactive, I always got a smile on my face, always happy, or try to be, just good times and stuff. But in Mexico, you'll get maybe a stern personality, okay? In Panama, okay, and they're nice folks, but it's just it's not even a cultural thing, it's a personality trait. But in Panama, it's just like, I don't care. It's a personality I call it poker face. All right, it's just very like that. And there's been many times in stores or whatever that I've interacted, and I'm like, am I aggravating somebody or something? But I'm not. And it takes a while for me to get used to that, is they're not, it's just different. I'm not in the Southeast. I'm not in the Panhandle, Florida. Okay, but it's nothing bad. But it's something that I need to be aware of, that I'm not offending nobody. It's just a normal personality trait. I hope I conveyed that across well enough. But I love my people down here in Panama, okay? Language, let's talk about un poco de español. Let's talk a little bit about Spanish. Okay, so I'd already had a little bit of Spanish, was finishing up a 1-year online course with Expat Spanish based out of Guadalajara, Mexico. And yes, Amy's link, okay, she's Canadian and she's an incredible instructor. She has fluent Mexico instructors also in the course. Expat Spanish, that's in the description as well. All right, but getting to Mexico, initially I was so excited. I'm just going to start. I said, I told my instructors, Amy and Tabitha, Denise. I said, I get out there. I said, I'm just going to learn in the street. I'm just going to let it ride. I'm going to let all my Spanish ride and start talking until I see their eyes like, oh, they got it, And so I was so excited, because that's a big thing for me. I think that's why I'm here in Panama, because I really love to speak a second language. And so there was dialect differences, even than what I had, a Mexican instructor, Denise, but it was simpler. Okay, so I was able to, after about 2 weeks, okay, when they want you to repeat something in Mexico, say Monday, like the day of the week, Monday. Okay, so after 2 weeks, getting frustrated at the checkout counter, then I started less hearing Monday because I'd gotten adjusted to that dialect. Well, down here in Panama, it's not Panama, it's Panama. Okay. The pronunciation of Spanish is very different. Not all of the word is completely pronounced. And so it took, and I'm continuing. It's the Spanish here is tougher at first. You have to continue to expose yourself, continue to get in areas where you're the only person there. Nobody else speaks English at all. I love those times because that's when, at my level, I get to really, continue to learn. Okay. So the Spanish, I'm going to say, for you right out of school or learning at home, it's probably easier to communicate what little bit of Spanish you have in Mexico, but it's not the end of the world. Why? Amable. They're all nice down here in Panama and they'll work with you. And yes, it does matter. It matters so much. When you're coming down here to vacation or whatever, at least you're trying. And I'll say this, not to offend anybody, but there's no reason for me to even live in Panama if I don't want to learn and be a part of the culture and learn to speak Spanish with these people. I mean, there's so much more given to me because I'll walk in and just start speaking Spanish. And it's not easy. It's not easy. Learning a second language, it's not fast. It's continuing, getting aggravated, continuing, learning new sources to learn Spanish, continuing, And then, yeah, I'm at the point now that sometimes, I'll be with a group, or something, and, okay, I'll dispatch and come down. I was like, Rick, you spoke solid Spanish for 2 hours, dude. And so I'm like, wow, there's a lot of words, I may not know at certain times, and I'll just, ask, like, ¿Cómo? Now here, when you want something repeated in Panama, you're like, ¿Cómo? And if I'm driving the conversation, I'm good because I know my vocabulary bank, but they're very nice and okay, along the line of language, okay, where I was, in a lot of the stores, they know a little bit English, okay. Here, they know a little bit of English as well, and there's some people that get by on just knowing the word hola, okay? And so it's not the end of the world, okay? But where do you need to go to learn your Spanish? At home, online, 1 live class a week, expat Spanish in the description below. Okay, moving along. Let's talk about comida, food. We know Mexico's the king on that one. Easy, hands down, not even going to try to play no games. Mexico, I live in Oaxaca, the state of Oaxaca down at La Crucecita, and that state was known for the best food in Mexico. So Mexico, you're the king. Something that I love about Panama, something I never ate in my life was fried and grilled plantain. It's like a cousin to the banana. They cut it up in little rounds, and you'll get that. You'll get that with your meal. Plantain. Also something else. It tastes like a potato, and that's yucca, the yucca plant. And so there's a place, a fonda that's near me that I love to go, and I just love to go eat the breakfast there, and I'll get yucca and I'll get plantain, and I just love it. So food, you'll survive, and it's just wonderful. Mexico has a little bit of an edge on it. Okay, alcohol. Okay, Mexico. Okay, in addition to tequila, and you've got to try it whenever if you go vacation or whatever, but you have to learn how to drink mezcal. Okay, mezcal is similar to tequila. However, there's only one plant that they use to distill mezcal, and it is you don't drink mezcal, you lightly, I don't even know if you don't even sip mezcal like whiskey. Ask me how I know. All right, it did take my breath away the first time I got down to Mexico in a restaurant, and I was just like, and the waiter said, "Oh, Rick, you have to take small kisses, just poco besos, just taste a little taste, and before you know it, you've done finished your glass of mezcal, and you've always got to have a piece of lime." Okay. I'm a Corona person, been a Corona person, as far as beer goes, since I lived in Southern California. They do have a lager beer down here called, I just go up there, sit down, say a Panama Red, Panama Rojo, Panama Red, and it's one of my favorite beers, down here in Panama. A lot of the other people, they're drinking, go out on a date, and your lady will probably drink a margarita, also, there's Panama has its own version of rum. It's called Abuelo, okay, and there's different grades. You get the glass bottle, it costs a lot, but it's real good, okay. A little bit on alcohol, okay. Fishing, I've had the chance to fish in both that small beach town in Mexico and here, and I've got one fishing trip on loaded up in YouTube, and I've connected to someone that I'm going to try to help. He has a lodge. He has multiple room lodges, a pool, and I guess the tuna's about to start running. And I think I talked to him the other day, and I'm probably going to do some filming at his lodge and kind of get a little bit more information to kind of provide some content for the people at home that actually make their way down here, you know, as far as how to get in contact with him, and especially, you know, if there's any issue, communication issue, contact me and I'll link you up with a place to go fishing down here in Panama. So yeah, the tuna are starting to run, and yeah, I'm gonna book a trip and actually go out and film, you know, and stuff with him as well as filming at his lodge. So fishing is great down here. Beaches, okay. Yeah, Mexico, you know, you have incredible, wonderful beaches. Panama, you have incredible, wonderful beaches, and it's like Mexico. You just have to know where to go. And the big beach that I'm about to do a video on is 35 minutes from here. It's called Vanal. Vanal is also one of the major surfing areas in Panama. And I'm probably going to put a picture at the end of this video. This was a very special week for myself because, you know, I surfed in Southern California 21 years ago. And so I went to a surf class here. This week, Tuesday, was my second lesson. And after doing a little bit of dry work, you know, right before actually going out into the water, first two white waters, the wave had done crashed, white waters, all the energy's at, you know, I caught two waves, and I was so proud, so happy. This has been such a wonderful week for myself. Like, hey, guess what? You're gonna start surfing again, Rick. How about that? And so I just love it. It's just so wonderful. The water, you know, getting in the water, you know, it's the best medicine of the world. I don't care what you're going through in your life. I don't care what it is. You get in the water, especially out there in the waves where they're like, I call it the washing machine. They'll snatch you under and rip you around a little bit in the washing machine, and you're like, you pop back up, you're like, okay, the world's a happy place. You know, that's the best medicine in the world. So I'm so glad to be able to go to that beach. There are closer beaches here, all right, but, you know, as opposed to Mexico, it was in the Bahia. You walk down, there's restaurants, there's people in the water, and it was Bahia. It was the ocean, it was Pacific, but there wasn't no big waves rolling in. It was very safe. Here, really close, you go out there, there's nobody there. I'm not getting in the water, you know, not sure where the riptides are, you know, the only person at the beach that you can see, you know, or I'm a little bit smarter, not much, a little bit smarter than that, you know. So, okay. With that being said, all right, the big things that we've got down the road is, Germany in December and Austria is going down. I will be sitting in where I was born, Augsburg, Germany, on my birthday in December. And, you know, I can't go to that area without popping over. Never been to Austria. So that's on the horizon. Something that I've been looking into for next spring. I really love to be in a country to continue, you know, develop my Spanish and learn other Spanish. Next spring, I'm thinking about Chile, okay? Thinking about Chile next spring. And on the horizon, I'll go ahead and give it out there to you. There's an incredible ski slope resort in Argentina. And next September, August, thinking about Bariloche, Argentina. So right now, there's nothing in the way to stop us from going and doing that. So excited about all that. But other than that, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you pulled away something, and especially if you're needing expat assistance, you know, hopefully you gained a piece of knowledge that will help you, just like I did. I studied so much YouTube before, you know, and applying and so forth. And again, if you need any Huatulco resident visa, please go to Lamboglia Law. And if y'all want to, please start a little bit of your Spanish. Okay, that link is below, Expat Spanish. And always, I'm approachable. I've got my personal email down there. All right, not just the channel's email where, you know, I may forget to go check the email, but drop me a line. If I don't pick you up on the comments, you know, drop me an email. Okay, I'm just here to help. And other than that, Thank y'all for viewing this all the way to the end. All right. And y'all take care and have a wonderful rest of your day, weekend, month. We'll see y'all.